So it all started with a quarrel between husband and wife.
She left the apartment. He watched her walk down the staircase. That's the last he ever saw her or heard from her.
19-year-old, no money, no place to run.
Nobody had any information on her whereabouts whatsoever.
Did Kimberly Medina abandon her family?
Most people would say, oh, there's no way Kimberly would leave her kids. She might leave Mike, but there's no way she would leave her kids. Mike did very little to look for his wife.
This seems like the same pattern all over again.
Have to try and prove a homicide occurred without the body, without any proof that she was deceased.
It's kind of mind-boggling, to tell you the truth.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Aurora, Colorado. It is a bustling city of fresh air and natural wonders with a military base as its largest employer. And it was in this beautiful place that Michael and Kimberly Medina started a family. But it wouldn't be long before things turned tragic.
They had two small children, ages 3 and 2 daughters. And Mike had a job which started at 3 o'clock in the morning delivering newspapers.
Kimberly was just 19 years old. Until she married Michael, she seemed to be drifting through life.
She dropped out of high school. She had kind of random jobs, but not something that would be a career.
Motherhood seemed to give her the purpose that she lacked.
Friends and families described her as very loving, that kids were number one, and that they were the most important thing in her life.
But on October 31st, her husband walked into the Aurora Police Department and reported that his wife was missing. She had left their apartment 2 nights before and hadn't come back.
They hadn't heard from her, there had been no calls.
So it all started with a quarrel between husband and wife. What did Michael Medina tell you initially?
He and Kimberly were engaged in a heated argument. She told him that she wanted to take their one and only vehicle in order to go get cigarettes. He refused to let her take the keys to the car. Kimberly got mad, stomped out of the apartment. He said he watched her walk down the staircase, down to the parking lot, and he maintains that that's the last he ever saw of her.
So then, what is the procedure here? What is the next step for law enforcement?
Initially, Aurora Police Department treated it like a missing person case. They did some follow-up with Mr. Medina over the next couple days, trying to get more details, more information.
Getting crazy, it was really hard to manage our jobs and just, go in a vehicle. And she had some people calling her, and all of a sudden she wants to leave, and I was like, well, go ahead.
The police fanned out across the city, hunting for clues that could lead them to Kimberly Medina.
Patrol officers interviewed a lot of people, searched the entire area, and they were able to come up with very little information.
But you did learn that Kimberly usually went to the same gas station when she needed cigarettes.
They checked the video surveillance at the gas station, and there was no evidence she'd ever been there.
We interviewed numerous family members, co-workers, and friends. Nobody had had any contact with her.
Another roadblock in the investigation was the limited technology that was available back then.
There was no such thing as cell phones. There's no way to track GPS. There's no way to do some of the new things that we do to find missing persons. The video surveillance isn't as prominent as it is today. They don't have cameras on every intersection.
But during an investigation, when neither high-tech nor low-tech proves to be useful, secrets can be revealed in the most basic of ways.
Kimberly was having an affair with her supervisor at work. That's common knowledge among the people who work there.
And at some point, Michael got wind of this extramarital relationship.
The police go to visit Mr. Medina at the apartment to see what's there. Interestingly enough, they find some cards from Mr. Medina to Kimberly, asking her not to leave him.
So when you spoke with Kimberly's boss, what did he tell you?
We interviewed that gentleman several times. He freely admitted that yes, he was having an intimate relationship with Kimberly prior to her disappearance.
And you asked him to take a polygraph test, and he agreed?
He took the polygraph examination, and it was determined that he was being truthful in that examination. We had nothing to indicate that he had anything to do or any knowledge of her disappearance.
It was clear that Kimberly had not left her family for her affair partner. For the police, it was another dead end in their pursuit of the truth. Kimberly's marriage was in trouble, but this still didn't explain why she simply disappeared into the night. There was only one explanation so far.
We had to consider that initial phases of the investigation, that she simply left on her own.
After an argument with her husband, Kimberly Medina vanished without a trace from their apartment in Aurora, Colorado. So far, the police investigation had come up empty. There was no trail to follow. In fact, there was no trail at all. The most perplexing question in this missing person case was, did Kimberly Medina abandon her family?
She's 19 years old, mother of 2 young girls, ages 3 and 2. And most people would say, oh, there's no way Kimberly would leave her kids. She might leave Mike, but there's no way she would leave her kids.
Could it be that she jumped on an airplane and had gone somewhere?
At one point, we received information that she may have left the country. We spoke with somebody from the U.S. Customs Department who verified that she had not applied for, nor had she received a passport.
And what about her husband, Michael, because she was cheating on him with her boss?
Mike did very little to look for his wife. Even after he reported her missing, he basically did nothing to try to find her. Members of Kimberly's family were out walking the streets, putting up flyers, things of that nature, and Mike never participated in any of that.
So 51 days after she disappeared, detectives interviewed Michael Medina to see if he could shed some light on what happened to his wife.
He indicated that he and Kimberly and their 2 girls had gone to McDonald's in order to get dinner, had returned home roughly around 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. About 10 o'clock or so, he and Kimberly started to have a rather heated argument, at which point Kimberly said, "I'm out."
Michael blocked her from using their landline telephone, and he refused to let her get behind the wheel.
"You won't let me use the car? Fine, I'm gonna walk." He says at that point she left the apartment. He watched her walk down the staircase out into the parking lot of the apartment complex, and he says that's the last he ever saw her or heard from her.
But for the people who knew her best, there was only one real suspect in her disappearance: her husband.
Her father and her friends, family friends, she seems to have a considerable amount of friends who they're convinced that you are the suspect in her disappearance. And I mean,
I would say friends of her coworkers, you know, and that doesn't bother me. I mean, these are people that maybe like him. I mean, she was a friendly, you know, pretty girl.
Everyone who knew Kimberly seemed to think the worst of Michael Medina.
I spoke to a number of coworkers. Almost every one of them indicated Kimberly and Mike had a rather volatile relationship. There had been issues in the past where Mike had been charged with domestic violence.
And did Kimberly share anything else with her coworkers?
She told them, "I value this job, and if I don't ever show up and I don't call in, make sure you come check on me or send somebody to check on me because something has happened to me."
2 weeks before she vanished, she failed to report to work, and she never called in.
That was very unusual for her. It was determined that on that particular day, she and Mike had been engaged in another heated argument, and he had pulled the phone cord out of the wall, which prevented her from calling into her work.
A belligerent husband, a marriage that was disintegrating. Was Kimberly thinking of leaving?
In the days leading up to her disappearance, we'd verified that she had stayed the night with a coworker, that following that she'd been talking to family and told family that she was going to leave Michael Medina. A friend overheard a conversation where she mentioned divorce.
A key piece of evidence, but it wasn't enough to build a case against Michael.
We had no proof. We had no story to tell. We were relying on the history of some domestic violence events, but no way that we could actually give any meaningful description about what had happened to Kimberly.
The investigation slowed to a crawl and finally stopped. The disappearance of Kimberly Medina was now officially a cold case.
We got a number of tips as the years went by where she might be, and we investigated them as well as we could. We ended up going all across the country to interview various people who might have some knowledge.
Not forgotten, at least until 9 years later, when a horrifying discovery would spark this cold case back to life. And whatever you think might have happened to Kimberly Medina, trust me, the truth turned out to be a whole lot worse.
What do you feel has happened to her?
I have no clue to this point. I know that she's not on her own free will to call home, because she would have done that by now.
The mysterious disappearance of Kimberly Medina had become a cold case, boxed up, put on a shelf, but brought down once in a while when a tip came in.
As the years went by, we were just kind of stuck. We've been able to get virtually no information. Throughout the course of this investigation, whenever we heard that a body might be buried somewhere, we did a thorough investigation at those sites.
Meanwhile, Kimberly's family continued to point the finger at her husband, Michael.
Her family also reported to the police, but their report was a lot more suspicious, thinking that Mr. Medina may have had something to do with her disappearance.
Their fears weren't unfounded. Michael Medina had a history of winning arguments with the back of his hand. The National Domestic Violence Hotline reports that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of violence by an intimate partner. Unfortunately, Kimberly Medina had become part of these statistics.
You multiply 42 months by 30 days a month. 20 bad events are coming out in the whole marriage, but no one remembers anything in the good. No one cares, and I'm having to defend way back then.
Those past events had landed Michael in a domestic violence course.
Went to classes, and I realized I had a problem. Because before I didn't even think that was a problem. To me, of domestic violence is when the lady's eyes hanging out and she's going to the hospital because her arm's busted and her face is all messed up. I never, ever hit Kimberly.
9 years rolled by. Michael Medina moved to a new town. He had a new wife and a new baby, along with the 2 children from his marriage to Kimberly.
He had a common-law wife in Alamosa, Colorado. Her name was Becky Garrell. They had 1 child, Dagan, and he was 16 months old.
He might have moved neighborhoods, but Michael's penchant for brutality followed him wherever he went. And I was about to get him into hot water again. One Sunday back in Aurora, Colorado, Detective Chuck Mell received a critical phone call.
I was notified by a small sheriff's department, the Rio Grande Sheriff's Department in southern Colorado. They told me that Mike Medina was currently in their custody for killing his infant son in their jurisdiction.
2 days earlier, Michael and his new wife Becky had been arguing, as they often did. And like Kimberly before her, Becky was preparing to leave Michael behind. So this seems like the same pattern all over again. I assume that Michael was furious.
He threatened that he was going to kill Dagan and then kill himself. That because she had left him and hurt him so badly, he was going to kill Dagan, and that she would have to deal with that forever as a punishment to her for what she had done to him.
And to illustrate his point even further, he decided to tell her a story at this point.
Michael had taken Becky aside and said, "I'm going to tell you what I did to my wife, Kimberly."
And then, after so many years, Michael finally revealed the truth about Kimberly's disappearance.
When Kimberly got off work that night, he asked her to go for a drive with him, and they had their daughters in the vehicle with them. He drove out to where he had dug this hole. He and Kimberly got out and started walking a little bit, and Mike told Kimberly, "You should never have cheated on me."
Michael was livid that Kimberly had taken up with her supervisor at work.
She was wearing a hooded sweatshirt at the time. He pulled the hood up over Kimberly's head, and she tried to hug him. At that point, he pulled a baseball bat out of the back of his jacket. He proceeded to hit her one time in the head. She fell down, tried to get up, and he said he hit her 2 more times with the bat.
And when she falls to the ground, continuing to beat her, pushes her in the hole, buries her alive, and he actually described hearing her moaning underneath the dirt, and then he left her.
And his new son, Dagan? Where was he?
He had taken Dagan and drowned him in a sewer ditch. This kid was 16 months old, and he drowns his own son in a sewer ditch. And it's kind of mind-boggling, to tell you the truth, that a guy would do that.
The killing had to stop. Police and prosecutors needed a path to justice for the lives that Michael Medina had destroyed. So now it becomes really tough for you as a detective because Kimberly hadn't been found. So how do you hold Michael accountable for what he did to her?
We have to try and prove a homicide occurred based on the defendant's confession without the body, without any proof that she was deceased.
Michael Medina pled guilty to killing his infant son. But to send him to trial for killing his wife, the district attorney asked a grand jury to indict him, which they did.
So 17 years later, after Kimberly disappeared, this case went to trial. And Mike Medina was ultimately convicted of first-degree murder for the death of Kimberly Medina. The 2 murders that he committed are just, beyond comprehension. He won't get out of prison. He will die in prison.
Michael Medina bludgeoned his wife with a baseball bat and buried her alive, and then drowned his baby son in sewage. This was a case of domestic violence that escalated to a sad and bitter end. And now it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. The case of Kimberly Medina highlights the severe risks associated with intimate partner violence, especially when attempting to end a relationship. Ensuring your safety is crucial in these situations. Consider consulting law enforcement and be sure to inform friends and family of the situation so they can be supportive and monitor your safety. Never meet with the person alone, and if possible, handle all communications through lawyers to reduce direct contact and risk of a confrontation. If that's not possible, break up with them via text or phone call to avoid in-person contact. If for some reason you have to break up in person, meet in a public place and have a trusted friend or family member with you. Create a detailed safety plan that includes emergency contacts, safe places you can go, and steps to take if you feel threatened. Make sure this plan is known to your support network. Change your passwords and secure your personal information. This can prevent unwanted contact and ensure your privacy. Reach out to support services like the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.